Much of what we learn about science, nature, and the environment happens outside of school and beyond the walls of museums, zoos, and nature centers. I have worked as an independent environmental professional for many years and know there are others like me who interact with the public in communities worldwide. On the Talaterra podcast, we discover who these professionals are, what they do, and how they create change. Why do I focus on independent professionals? I focus on them because they move freely through communities. They move freely between schools, organizations, businesses, programs, and other informal learning environments. They are positioned to meet the public where they are, and this is powerful. Thank you for joining us today. I'm your host, Tania Marien. Hello and welcome. Today my guest is Wendy Nadherny Fachon. Wendy is an author, journalist, podcast host, and environmental educator. Her work has been published by Natural Awakenings magazine, as well as Dreamvisions 7 Radio and Sustainable Living News. After working many years in the healthcare industry, Wendy left her position to focus on health and wellness topics affecting children. She developed an after-school walking program, and this gave rise to her radio show, the Story Walking Radio Hour. How did Wendy develop her after-school program? What is her radio show about? How does she approach partnership building, which has been key to her success? Let's find out. Wendy, welcome. Thank you so much for being on the show today.
It's great to be here. Thank you so much for the invitation.
Mm-hmm. Of course. Now, you wear many hats. Can you tell us more about the various aspects of your work before we dive into your after-school program? Your book, your writing, the journalism that you do. Can you tell us more about all these many things that you are involved in?
Sure. So I write for Natural Awakenings magazine. I've been doing that for over 12 years. I write for the Boston, Greater Boston and Rhode Island edition. And actually the first article that I wrote for them back in 2010 was about a walking program for adults. It was, I think I was familiar with Shape Up Rhode Island, but I was on the wellness committee for our school district. We ended up getting teams of teachers to sign up for this walking competition. It was a 3-month walking competition. And I ended up writing an article about it and specifically giving the results of what happened in my town. So I think we had 12 teams of teachers sign up, 6 members on each team. In one of the schools, they had 3 different teams. This was a school with fourth and fifth grade. One of those teams placed 12th out of 800 teams across the state for weight loss, which was really kind of cool. Now, we couldn't really do this kind of program with kids because you've got sort of the body shaming piece. There are just certain issues you have to be really careful of with kids but you don't worry about it so much with adults. But the idea behind this was to get the teachers walking to set a good example for the kids. So my very first article for Natural Awakenings was about that. And then from there, I just started writing more and more. And oftentimes I do write articles for them about kids, but I also do professional or business spotlights for the different advertisers that we feature in the magazine. And it's a lot of really interesting people doing a lot of very interesting things. I really enjoy that.
Yes, yeah. And you have displayed your articles very nicely on your website. And so listeners can go browse through all the many topics and articles that you've written about. I am always interested in hearing people's stories about how they found their way to environmental education or informal science education. I know that you used to work in the healthcare industry in an entirely different role. How long did it take you to leave that industry to do what you do now?
Wow, it didn't take long. I looked at the health industry. I was actually health insurance and taking a look at the system and finding it just looked very broken to me. And I think people are fairly aware that in this country, we probably spend more on healthcare than any other country per capita. And we also have the sickest population, which just doesn't make sense. And I felt like I was being part of the problem instead of part of the solution. So I sort of step by step, I pulled away from the health insurance and stepped into working with kids, because I felt like if you want to have people to practice healthy habits, it's often difficult with adults. They're very ingrained with their habits. But if I could work with kids, get them at the very beginning, get those habits established at a young age, and then they will grow up to be healthy adults. So I think that's sort of what was going on in my mind. And I've always been a walker. I love walking. And it seems to me you've got a lot of kids who they're not necessarily athletic. Walking is an easy thing to do. It's simple. It doesn't cost anything. And I just realized that a lot of kids aren't getting out and walking. I wasn't seeing it. And I figured out there was a way, something like after school clubs was one way to get around to doing this. And I was sort of trying to figure out how I would get myself there. But also I think, it's easy if kids aren't super athletic, walking is something that every child can do, because I've had some kids with weight issues. And when you get kids like that together with other kids and you start to create a positive atmosphere around them and a positive club activities, then everybody's part of the group. You build a sense of belonging for everybody. And, so I did take some coursework with Rhode Island, Rhode Island Program Quality Assessment Program. I did a lot of training to learn how to create the right kind of atmosphere and structure to develop these kinds of programs. And that was invaluable, the learning that I got from that. And then I was able to start establishing some trial programs. I worked with Boys and Girls Club in Providence. I worked with an elementary school in Pawtucket. These are both schools located in impoverished areas. And I started off as a volunteer. And then once the program started working, then I actually wasn't paid a whole lot, but I got something. So I'm like, okay, this is good. And of course, once I got kids outside, there was just all kinds of environmental learning. And I've been an outdoor person all my life. And when I was growing up, my parents would take us on trips to hike in Wyoming and Colorado and other places. And so I guess I've been exposed with a lot of nature. My mother taught me all about wildflower identification. My grandmother also fed those kinds of interests in me. So that's always sort of been a part of who I am. So I was able to incorporate that into these walking trips. So a lot of these schools that I was working in have blacktop surrounded by chain link fence. And these kids don't get a lot of recess time. Many of them don't get after school time. They're not getting outdoors. And so I was able to finagle things so I could take the kids off the school playground and we could walk 5 or 6 blocks to a local park and start to engage with nature there, with, the ducks swimming in the pond, the trees, the flowers, just whatever kind of happened as we were walking along. And I call my practice story walking because things happen when you walk and stories start to unfold, conversations, people you meet. The kids start to create their own stories with the interactions that they have on the park, whether it's on the playground and they're creating make-believe stories, or whether a naturalist is taking us through the friendship garden to show us all the edible plants that grow wild there. You just all these different kinds of opportunities to get kids outside and engage with nature. So it began as that, and then I started doing programs with other schools. Just kind of went from there.
Can you lead us on a mini version of your after-school walking program? If we were enrolled, what might we be doing?
Well, we'd get our homework done by 3:30 so we could go to the park, because that's the carrot. And then we line up in the hallway, we get ready to go. I'll also say that when I establish safety rules, and it's important for the kids to help us create those safety rules with me so that we have buy-in. So very first time I have a group together, we write those down on a great big piece of manila paper, and I have the kids say, okay, what kind of rules do we need? And these kids they've been doing this in their classroom. If I'm with third graders, they've already been doing it in kindergarten, first and second grade, so they're prepped for this, and they come out with a lot of great ideas about just, come up with things just like stay on the sidewalk, right? Stay together in a group for safety. And it's all really about the safety, but it helps the kids feel secure, and it helps me feel more secure when we all know we are on the same page. And if kids don't follow those rules, there are consequences. They don't get to come with the group the next time or whatever that might be, but there have to be consequences. So then we leave the school building. We walk along the sidewalk. We're very careful. We stay together as a group. We cross together. When there's street crossings, we cross out as a group. Then we arrive at the park, and we'll step into a great big playing field, and all of a sudden the kids will just run and fly. The bodies will be flying around all over. There's this great joy that kind of happens because they're at the park. And we run races. So we're going to head over to the playground, but we start here, and we have a race, and we go to a certain point, race to that tree. Eventually we get to the playground, and then we'll have a little, free time. Kids will play around. They'll play some of their different games they like to play. And then after that, we'll go maybe take a nature walk, say at Slater Park, taking them into the Friendship Garden, which is kind of a fun, kind of mysterious spot. It used to be a very formal garden, and then it got overgrown, and it's got a pond with pollywogs or frogs, turtles, that kind of thing. All kinds of wild plants around there, little pathways. Just lots of little things to explore. So we'll take that time, explore. I remember kids stopped in the park, there's like a refreshment stand. So kids stopped to get some cups, water and cups. And then they had those cups to go scoop up pollywogs and look at pollywogs. And then of course, we let the pollywogs go back into the pond because we can't take those with us, and we want them to keep growing and thriving. So, something like that. And then eventually we wrap things up, and we've got to get back to the school by 5:30 for the buses and the parents that come to pick the kids up. And so we definitely have a set schedule. And we get our way back. There's always those kids that are very reluctant and walking very slowly, don't want to go back to school yet. So I gotta kind of to be at the rear. I'll have a couple high school students help me lead the group so we can keep everybody together and get them back on time. But it's just a lot of fun, and these kids have a chance to chat with each other, make new friends. When they're in school, they're not allowed to talk much of the time. They've got to be quiet. Even when they're hallway, it's got to be, their little indoor voices. And these kids have a need to use their outdoor voices. So we have to allow for that. And we do. But then we're back in the school, and then they got to quiet back down again. So
Thank you. That sounds like a lot of fun.
It is.
One of the reasons I do what I do is to help facilitate partnerships between independent professionals, independent programs, doing environmental awareness work, and facilitating partnerships between them and community groups or organizations or some other larger entities. You mentioned that you have this relationship with the school. You had a relationship with the Boys and Girls Club and others. How did you approach them, and how long did it take to build trust and open communication with the people that you collaborated with?
Yeah, well, it wasn't that difficult, but these were areas where there's a great need. When you've got places where they would want to have these programs, then it's easier. Of course, there's also the issue of funding. And I've gotten into working with schools, and then all of a sudden their after school funding just kind of disappeared. So that can always be kind of tricky. So funding is often also part of the issue. And I'm also thinking of some of the other partnerships. Actually, I do work with the Empowerment Factory, which is, wow, she's got so many wonderful partnerships. And then, so I've got that partnership, whereas all kinds of community members in, the city of Pawtucket, some of the art organizations in Pawtucket, we collaborate with them. Even with companies or businesses in the area, they also collaborate and help support and help bring funding. So we've had one of the credit unions brought in funding for a reading program that we did. So we've got that kind of thing. Then there's like partnerships where I took my Slater Park group of kids. We did a walking field trip to a local business, and it was actually a box manufacturer, printed boxes. And so we walked, the kids got a tour of this facility, and they learned about the recycling, the paper, what it looks like when it comes in on these huge pallets. And then they saw, as it goes through the system, all the die cutting. And so all this waste is created from the paper, from the make ready and the die cutting. And then they saw the paper get smushed, the scrap paper smushed back into these cubes about the size of the pallets it came in. And then it gets back on that same truck that came in with the good paper, and it goes out and it gets recycled. And that same company came into the fourth grade class and did a presentation, PowerPoint, where they showed how paper is made and talked about the trees and the milling and all of that. And they also brought to the class these small baby pine trees, white pine. And the kids got to plant these. They got to recycle their milk cartons from lunch, plant these little pine trees in, and then they could take those home and plant them in their yard at home. And what's really neat is this company was talking about how, for every tree that we harvest, we support planting 5 more trees back into the ground to replace the tree that's been harvested. And so there's all this messaging about sustainability and how this corporation, the things that they do for sustainability. And the kids got to see that. They got to I gave them my camera. The kids took photographs all over the factory of all these things. And so we could create a scrapbook from it. But then the kids also got to ask questions of the president of the company. It's pretty cool, and get answers. So it was a really great experience. So partnerships are everywhere around you if you just think creatively and look for those experiences.
Okay, so how did your walking program become your radio show?
Ooh, okay. Well, 2015, that summer, I invited a friend of mine, the Empowerment Factory. Gail was the founder of the Empowerment Factory. She's doing mostly adult education programming. And I invited her to join me for the summer to teach at a couple environmental type focused programs in schools right near where she was. And one of them was one of the schools that I'd already been working in. And so we did the summer programming. Gail had a blast. She loved it. And she's just taken off with it. Well, at the same time that she was just getting into that, my son became very ill. And he was diagnosed in early 2016 with brainstem cancer. I had to pull back from absolutely everything. I mean, I was 24/7 focused on his care. And while Gail was running off with this great program, I was just like absorbed in our family situation. Once my son passed away, I wanted to get back into the after school work, but I also had this desire to want to reach a broader audience. I mean, when I'm working with kids after school, I'm just like 12 kids at a time, but how could I take this and share what I was doing with even more people, more kids, more teachers, more families? And so I kind of came up with this idea for podcasting. Well, actually, I also had some, shall we say, some divine intervention that took place. It also kind of pointed me in that direction. And I had to follow that. So I did. And also, there were things after my son passed away, there were some things that my husband and I found as we were going through his room. And one of those, and I was going through his computer, and on his computer, he had a list he had created after high school. And the list was all these different environmental issues, toxic challenges, radioactivity, pesticides. He had this full page list of things that he wanted to tackle. And he was no longer here to tackle them. So I'm like, oh my gosh, I've got to carry this work forward. So he's kind of got the bullet points set out for me, and I've added a few, but that inspired me. I'm doing this for my son, and I feel like he's sitting here right behind me and helping guide me through this whole process. So he was a big inspiration for that. So yeah, so I actually I won a contest for at the Dreamvisions Center Radio. Every spring they have a spring extravaganza, a little raffle, and you can win the chance to do two radio podcasts through the station. And I won. So I did my first two podcasts, and I was like, oh, I love this. I've got to keep going. And so I signed on with them, and I've been doing it for I think almost 5 years now, and I really do enjoy it. I do one episode a month, which is fine, and I put a lot into it. I bring on a lot of interesting guests that are from all different sectors, really. But we do focus on environmental issues. So I'll bring in a lawyer. I might bring in someone who does website design and tech apps, but has a little side business where he specializes in environmental companies because he really that's a group that he really wants to help. So I'm not just bringing in environmental educators. I'm bringing in people from one of my guests was she sells body care products, a line called Pure Haven that's non-toxic. And so, a lot of toxins from our body care products get into our water, go through our skin, have all kinds of adverse effects. That word fragrances that you see on any bottle, that can be any of, I don't know, 8,000 probably different chemicals that go into making fragrances, but they're allowed to just use that word fragrances as the ingredient. So my friend talked a lot about that as well as some other things. So the ways that we can get involved to help the environment and to create more sustainability are endless. Like almost any career that you go into, you can find a way to also include that in your work.
Yep, I agree. Absolutely. The environment touches all sectors. Climate touches all sectors. It's everybody's conversation.
It is.
You also lead a nature drawing program.
Oh, yeah. I love it.
For that program, you collaborate with the Rhode Island School of Design. How did that start? And also, if you can add to that, how did you develop your partnership with RISD?
Okay. Well, actually, I do this work through the Empowerment Factory, and Gail Allers, who is the executive director of the Empowerment Factory and founded it, is a RISD grad. She graduated years ago with a specialty in light metals, but then she finally got to the point where she wanted to give back. So she created the Empowerment Factory back in 2014, and she's about to celebrate 10 years of doing this work. So that's very exciting. So she had the RISD connection. She's got a lot of other really interesting connections. And we did some other programs before we arrived at the nature drawing one. And that started with our first two modules were endangered species from all around the world. And we create these sort of workbooks. They're bilingual, English, Spanish. And we have RISD students that helped us develop the drawings that are in these books, and the RISD students also help us teach the programs virtually. We created this program in 2021 as a response to COVID and the distance learning because we need to be able to pivot and be able to kind of keep things moving. So we figured out how to deliver these programs online, and we ended up we worked after the two endangered species modules, we ended up partnering with Rhode Island Department of Environmental Education, their Fish and Wildlife Division, and they helped us select animals and focus on habitats so that we could kind of group our different modules by habitat so that we added vernal pool, we added ponds and rivers, we've added the salt marsh, we're about to bring in the open ocean piece. And so with each one of these, we've got 7 animals. Again, RISD students helping us through all of this. Rhode Island Department of Environmental Management helping us focus the studies. And then we ended up getting the Rhode Island Department of Education to include us in their all course network and provide the funding so that we can offer these courses to students all across the state. So imagine us getting this virtual classroom where we've got students from the inner city, from the rural areas, from suburbs, all coming into, imagine 12 to 15 kids on the same screen in the same classroom without masks during COVID, being able to smile and laugh. They might have their pet bunny in their lap or their cat or their little sister who wants to also draw along with them. It just kind of brought these kids all together. And just for an hour, we have a lot of fun. They draw, we tell jokes, we teach them we look at each animal as a character with challenges, environmental challenges. We talk about those. We talk about the characteristics of each of these animals, how they developed to live in the habitats that they live in, talk about what they eat. And then once you learn 7 animals, you see how they all connect in the food chain within that environment. So it's just a lot of learning happening right there on a computer. But the kids are doing something. They're not just sitting listening. They're drawing. They're following the RISD artist step by step. And then they're hearing, why is the beak shaped like that, right? Or why is the animal have those colors? So a lot of conversation happens while they're drawing. It's just been really exciting. And then we've taken the artwork and we've had several student exhibitions. And artwork that is done by 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders is phenomenal. These kids, and then we've also done it with middle school. The artwork these kids have come out with is just really something. And it's really fun to share. So it's been a great program.
Yeah, it sounds fantastic. Are any of the exhibitions online? Can the student work be viewed online?
Ooh, we ought to do that, I will sometimes put screenshots on Facebook where I'll have, we have all the kids hold up, what are the killifish, hold up the killifish or hold up your whatever picture they're drawing that day, spotted salamander. But they have to hold it up in front of their face, so we can't see their face, but we want to see their artwork. And then we take a class shot, so that we can share it online, because you can't share their faces and so forth online, but you can share their drawings online. So sometimes we'll put galleries up that way, but it really would be fun to have an online thing. And it's interesting right now, Roger Williams, and this just came to me this morning, an email, Roger Williams Park Zoo, every year, and I think this is the 7th year that they've had an endangered species drawing contest for youth. This is the 7th year. They just launched it. And so we encourage our students to participate in that. And they don't have a full gallery, but if you go to their website, you will find the winners of last year and the top honorable mentions. And that's, oh my gosh, it's really cool. Now, the other thing I just want to mention is that the other component of this drawing is we talk with the kids about how they can use their art to help build awareness for the animal, to help share the animal's environmental story. And, they can share their drawings and what they've learned with family, with friends. They can take their artwork and reproduce it on a note card and write a note to somebody on it. There's just lots of ways that they can take that art to share what they've learned.
Now, this the nature drawing program, how many weeks is this program?
They are usually 6 or 7 weeks. So we'll run we run them in the summer. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, we have a different module each of those days so kids can pick from whatever. And then in the fall, I'm trying to think if we do once or twice, a 6 or 7 week session in the fall. Then we're doing right now, February, March, we have a session. And I think March through April, May, we do another 6 or 7 week program. So we keep it going year round.
Mm-hmm. And it's free for the families and for children. Yeah.
It is free for it, yeah, because we get funding from RIDE. We sometimes get funding from local arts organizations. We sometimes get funding from local businesses. So however Gail can find the funding, we take whatever we can get and then put it forward. Yeah, which is fantastic because a lot of these kids couldn't afford to do this otherwise.
Your approach is extracurricular, or are you also addressing standards and other requirements, things to help to teachers with their programs?
That's a really good question. We are just doing this as after school program, but yes, we do build standards, next generation science standards into that. And when we do our teacher training, we've got one slide in particular that tells exactly which standards we are hitting with this program. So yes, we do that. So if teachers, and I think this is where we'd sort of like to head, is bringing this program into classrooms for teachers who want it. Okay. And we can teach teachers how to teach the program because we're getting that organized with it. Or we could match teachers up with RISD students and have the RISD students come in virtually and teach the program to the class. I mean, there's lots of different ways that we can do this, but we're getting it down pat. We really are getting it down pat. We've had plenty of practice. We've put over 500 kids through the program.
Wow.
And yeah. So yeah.
Oh, and when did it start? What year did this start?
2021.
Yeah. Okay. 500 kids. Wow.
Yeah.
That is great. Yeah. Okay. So I did drop in on the website for the Empowerment Factory and I looked at the classes and a lot of them are filled already, or there's a waiting list, or they fill up.
Yeah. Yep. We fill up really fast.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, no, we do. I mean, we need more funding if we want to have more classes. We're not a huge organization. We're only so big, but I think, we do want to grow. But a lot of it, I think for the past, couple of years is we're fine tuning a lot of these programs. So the nature drawing program, the art in the park program, and then there's, some reading adventures programs and the Trash to Treasures, which is all about making art with using recycled materials, and that's a wonderful program. We do. There's also literacy that happens with that. Certain books that we read with the kids, and then they learn about what is the life cycle of an aluminum can, and so we talk about that. And Gail is well known because she's a light metals artist, some of the artwork that she's done over the years using aluminum cans and the way she cuts them and manipulates the material and creates just some really stunning work. And she's created, and there may be on one of the web pages, Gail holding up a very large piece of artwork that's made out of plastic bottles and tin cans, and the kids all work together to make that piece of artwork. So the kids each make their own individual small piece, but then they work together to create one big piece that becomes a public art display.
Oh, piece. Wow. And then where does that go on display?
It might be, in a school, the school, the kids, usually where the kids attend, but it could also be, if they decide to put it in public. It's really, I think, up to the kids and the teacher where it gets displayed. It's their work when it's all said and done.
Okay. So a question about this recycled art program. Do the kids receive a materials list in advance to go collect some things or get materials, or how does that work?
They might, but I know that that the Empowerment Factory collects a lot of these materials, or puts word out and says, oh, if you got old bottles, you got old. We use, like in our nature drawing class, we use bottle caps. So we'll use water bottle caps, tennis ball caps. We get at least 4 different sizes. Then we create art kits that we actually get delivered to the kids' houses. Okay, so they've got their drawing pencils, eraser, the caps they use as templates, because when we teach the nature drawing piece, we teach them how to see the shapes and how those shapes get put together to create the form of the animal. So the kids learn how to use those caps to create animal shapes. So we're using recycled materials for that. And then again, with the Trash to Treasures program, usually Gail takes all the materials into the classroom. She's done that program actually in not only after school programs, but she's actually been in regular school day classrooms presenting this program. And that's been hugely successful.
Wow. Okay. So see, you wear many hats.
I do. Where do you want me today? I just go there. Which hat today?
So you lead a walking program. You host and produce a radio show. You are very involved with the Empowerment Factory and working with artists from RISD and working with teachers and collaborating with local businesses and organizations. What's next for you?
Ooh, I don't know. I think I've got enough. I think just to stay with what I'm doing and just do it better, do it better. I don't think I've kind of hit my retirement age. I'm supposed to be slowing down. But no, there is something I do want to do. And it stems from an experience I had in high school where I taught swimming lessons. This was at my high school. We had an 8-lane competition pool, and we taught swim lessons to kids on Saturday mornings, and we taught life-saving to Boy Scouts on Wednesday evenings. It was a really well-organized organization. This was like 90 junior and senior students that helped deliver these programs. And I got a calling to, just as I had done in the swimming pool in high school, I was told I would be doing this on dry land. And I'm like, what? Teach kids how to walk? Kids already know how to walk. I don't think so. No, but I know now what it is. It's taken me a while to figure it out. But the idea is same as we did in high school, getting high school kids trained to lead groups of younger kids on walks. And the reason I say this is there's such a need. After school programs, it's very hard to find teachers to do after school programs. They're done when they get to the end of their school day. They've had enough. And, finding other people to do that, it's not always very easy. It doesn't pay at all, really. I mean, it really hardly pays. A lot of what I did volunteer wise, because the kids just need this. But it would be a great experience for high school students, those who aren't involved in, say, competitive sports, but they're looking for something to do and something that will develop their leadership skills, for them to take the training to learn how to work with younger youth, and help them have these wonderful outdoor and creative art and so forth experiences. And I can envision it, but it's like, okay, how do I get there? It's going to take a lot of people to get involved. It's going to take a lot of partnerships, I think, to make it happen. And the other piece of that I see is the high school kids having their own, what I call net walks. So they would have their own walking groups within the high school or nearby, where the walks are a place for them to connect with career professionals and have casual conversations. So if kids are interested in conservation, or they're interested in environmental law or whatever, we bring professionals in to actually meet with them, to give and teach the kids how to ask the right kind of questions to these people, to probe into what they do, why they do it, what was it that drew them to those careers, and once they're in once they decided, how did they proceed to what kind of schooling did they have to get, what kind of things that they have to get involved with to eventually, get their way to where they were professionally. Because I think students need to hear those stories, because then it'll help students figure out, oh, wow, I never thought of that. I could go do that if I want to go there, right? I think we need to have a lot more conversations. And unfortunately, kids are so tied up right now on their screens, and that's not allowing them to get off the screen and away and meeting face to face with people and having these inspiring conversations. So I think we need a little digital detox. And I think net walking and story walking is, I think at the top of my list of what I'm delivering when I deliver those programs is digital detox and nature immersion. Those two things are the top of what I want to accomplish for these kids.
That's wonderful. How can people learn about your program or reach out to you if they want to help with what's next for you?
Just thank you for that question. They can go find my website, storywalking.com. Really easy to remember. They'll find all kinds of things on there. They'll find my story, some of my stories, my articles, my podcast. It's all right there. And then if they want to contact me directly, and get involved some way, or they have ideas they want to discuss, it's storywalkerwendy storywalkerwendy@gmail.com. storywalkerwendy@gmail.com. Super easy to remember. And I'm also on Facebook. I've got the Story Walking Radio Hour Facebook group on Facebook. People come join there. That's where you find a lot of what's going on. So those are the key ways. And I'm on LinkedIn as well.
This is fantastic.
Yeah, and I hope people will reach out to me because I want to share, because it's been so marvelous, and there's a lot to share here, or make connection or introduce them to people, because I know a lot of people now through the podcast that are doing amazing things. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
To learn more about Wendy's after-school program, the Story Walking Radio Hour, the Empowerment Factory, and its nature drawing program, see the links in the show notes. Thank you for joining us today. See you next time.